I just want to go ahead and debunk a sort of silly argument I saw just now. Hi, I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. And the argument goes essentially, not my argument, this was someone else's, essentially that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. We're going to start off just by saying that is a very silly premise. That is a very, very silly premise, because let's go back to the start of the country. Not quite the start of the country. We're going to fast forward to 1782 with the Constitution. This is going to sound a little bit biblical, but bear with me. In the beginning, that only sounds biblical because that's similar to how Genesis 1 begins. But the Constitution, when it was written, only extended the right to vote to a specific class of of people within the United States, the citizenry. And to be a citizen, there were some qualifications that we no longer use because we no longer see value in those qualifications. They were basically white property owning males. White property owning males. That was 1782 time. And that, before somebody gets on the United States for being horrible at the beginning, that was everybody. The United States was not unique in that. You could go back to, there's countries that had veered off of that, but most of them veered off to get back. Anyways, white property owning males. Now, the idea, and just follow me on this logic, the idea of saying that only people who own property can vote is an intriguing one. It's an intriguing one, but it's a flawed one. It's intriguing in the fact that when you say somebody owns property, what you're saying is, when you say only they have the right to vote, what you're saying is, okay, because they own property and they're a citizen, they have a stake in what's going to be the future of the country they're a part of. If you don't own property and you're not classified as a citizen, you have no stake in the future of the country anyway. Now, like I said, it's an intriguing but flawed idea. Flawed because anybody who's within the country technically has an interest in how the country is going to be moving forward. Anybody who's in the country permanently. The reason I say permanently is because people on vacation do not get the right to vote. People here on student visas, I don't believe typically get the right to vote. Green card, you do, because green card is a permanent status, I believe. I'd have to be checked on that. So, 1782, that was the situation. That's since been updated several times. I believe it was, I think women got the right to vote with, and don't quote me on this, this is a 10-minute podcast, I'm not looking it up. I think it was the 18th Amendment. Anyways, 18th Amendment might have been the one that ended prohibition. I could be mixing them up. Anyways, we move on. This argument came up on the Whatever podcast again. I say again because I'm pretty sure if it came up once, it's come up before. We're talking about somebody on the podcast, not the host of the podcast, right? The podcast did not endorse this idea necessarily. But one of the guests said that women shouldn't have the right to vote. And the argument essentially came from the fact that women are necessarily immature. That's obviously a flawed argument. And we talk a little bit, especially people on the conservative side, they talk a little bit out of both sides of their mouth when they talk about women. Because on one hand, when girls are young, the essential rule of thumb is that girls grow up faster than boys. They mature faster. And every conservative person I've run into has held that belief. It's not a bad belief, and it's not an incorrect belief. If you've ever run into a 12-year-old boy and a 16-year-old boy, the maturity levels are roughly the same. Like, some people would say that that's because men aren't required to grow up, right? And thus the corollary to that being women are required to grow up. I don't know. I don't have kids. I haven't raised any, so I can't answer that question for you. What I can say is that saying that women shouldn't have the right to vote is an inherently stupid argument. Number one, because it alienates half the population, and roughly half, that's what we're going with. On top of that, a plurality of ideas in a country that is a plurality is necessarily a good thing. Alexander Hamilton, without really intending to, because obviously he wrote the original document that didn't give women the right to vote. Alexander Hamilton wrote about how important it is to have a plurality to avoid tyranny of the minority and tyranny of the majority. You're not a democracy because you don't want a straight vote deciding ideas. You don't want popular opinion, strictly speaking, to decide an idea. And you don't want a tiny group of people to control the entire idea, to control the entire country. We kind of have that now, but we'll do that in another podcast. So you have this importance of plurality, and what that means is that everybody needs to have a voice, and those voices need to come through in a republic, right? So the way they come through is that representatives respond to their constituents, and you have multiple representatives from multiple different districts, and you need all those voices. Now, those voices have to actually hold their representatives accountable, but I digress. That's a different opinion. To eliminate half the voices in the country is foolish. It's just straight foolish and straight wrong. By the numbers would tell you that, especially right now, there are more college-educated women than there are college-educated men. So inherently speaking, you have different perspectives being brought by women when it comes time to vote. The women may have a different perspective, and that's a good thing. You don't want only one perspective controlling the narrative. That is the Alexander Hamilton defined tyranny of the minority. You need more voices, and you need more voices at the table saying, maybe this is not a good idea, or this could be a good idea, but it needs some adjustments. It needs some workshopping. It's all good. It is all good. I'm desperate for the conservatives to stop endorsing crap like this. I'm desperate for them to do it, because there are some ideas that I'd love to get on board with. There really are. There are some really, really strong ideas. But I have to sit here and just not define myself by a party, because I can't get on board with anybody. Everybody's got bad ideas, and the bad ideas seem to be the things that they advertise. And I don't know why they advertise them. It's foolish. It drives me nuts. It drives me up a wall. It drives me batty, which is a phrase that nobody uses anymore. And now I look foolish for saying on the internet. Look, you want to get on a podcast and you want to get engagement, you want to farm engagement, do whatever, fine. Go for it, live your life. But some of these ideas that come out are inherently stupid, and they're the ideas that get traction, and then they're the ideas that people talk about, not the actually important ideas. Like, hey, anybody notice we just sent $100 billion to a bunch of different countries and to the military-industrial complex? I mean, we did that. I actually liked the TikTok ban part of it, because it's not a TikTok ban. It's a forced sale from a company that has been known to cause major data breaches within the United States. I already talked about that. But anyways, but $100 billion. We casually are just like, oh yeah, $100 billion, just throw it out the window. Anybody ever think that any of the problems at home would benefit from having a $100 billion budget? I think they might. Maybe hospitals. I don't know. Hospitals, the homeless maybe would like to be able to tap into that money, or homeless or organizations that assist the homeless would maybe like some of that $100 billion. If you're going to spend that money, spend it at home. Don't just write a blank check to people who make missiles. Sorry. Anyways, that's what I got for you. It's a Friday. We're going to end early today. And by end early, I mean on time. Stop saying ridiculous crap. Just no. Stop it. Don't say regressive crap. Just stop. Focus on things that are actually important. Anyways, have a good weekend. I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. Have a great day.